can tell you this about tribes up the Amazon. They still build rafts the same way they did 1,000 years ago. No change, because there's no need for change. The animals were there, the food was there, they were growing on trees. The shark was the same for billions of years, not much change. Of course, the ocean used to be a constant environment, you know what I mean? But when people live up north or in the tropics, you can't put a fish in your hut and leave it there for 2 days. It spoils. But if a guy lives in an area with a lot of salt and he happened to put it on a salt pan and the fish lasts 6 days, and they used to use salt, salting foods. Then they use peppers and things like that to preserve food. So if you live in an area where there's climatic change, it gets hot, it gets cold, you got to skin animals, develop clothing, then you develop a heater. Do you know what I mean? If conditions are fairly constant, like the South Pacific, you don't need clothes. And fruit and coconuts grow on trees, and the ocean's full of fish. There's not much social evolution because the conditions there do not generate need for change. But if you people that live up north had to make boats with thicker hulls for the ice, you know, and they had to invent things. In other words, during a war, there's a lot of inventions, destructive inventions. You know, now today in electronics, there's a lot of inventions. So the Japanese say that the life of in a store today is 6 months of electronic equipment, and then something new comes out. And the nation that doesn't change its stuff, updates fast, I will have no doubt that if Japan continues the way they're continuing, they will control high tech in the future. They're moving faster than other nations. Is it because they're Japanese? No. Because they're in a competitive world, and they realize the Americans would like to invent something new, then they'd like to run it for 4 or 5 years to amortize the investment. If you put in $20 million to make a certain type of computer, you don't want to change it every year. You want to let it run as long as you can. But there are other countries, and some countries, will, like China, will take the cell phone and copy it. Why should they fight? Why should they buy patents? They don't have to. So they'll copy whatever, and China will pass nations that sell cell phones. Do you understand that? Yes.
Let's say a certain area or country, everybody agrees to move to a resource-based economy. Let's say they all agree today. What would be the first 3 steps in that direction, but while feeding the people as well during that?
Well, let's assume that Brazil, that's the first thing I'm saying, let's build the city that Fresco has in mind. The research center is a planning center that is not designed yet for people. The research center sends out the surveys of all the world's resources to find out what we have. Otherwise we can't decide anything. So we have to find out what we lack. We lack drinking water now. So the first project would be to extrude food. You know what that means? We will extrude bread with all the vitamins in it that people need to survive. And then when it's extruded, it'll be sucked down to the smallest possible dimension and hermetically sealed. Then it doesn't need refrigeration. If you take vegetables, dehydrate them, and place them in cans, 1 can the size of that will feed 500 people. Whereas canning each soup can is inefficient. You got water in it. But if you dehydrate food and study its effect on animal health, and then dehydrate, you can store billions of tons of food dehydrated. So the first thing would be studies at the planning center in dehydration, food, nutrition, because those are the things needed first. We want to feed people that are starving during the transition. And we will do the planning first and tell people why they can't live in these cities, the planner. Then the planners will plan the next city and the third city. Say Argentina wants to build, say Russia wants to build 2 of them and try them out. They are welcome to come to our cities and learn about it, live there, see if they like it. And if they do like it, which I think they will, because there's no restrictions, very little restriction, they can't hurt another person. If you do that, you're sent in for corrective behavior. But when we say correctional institute, it does nothing for criminals. You know what I mean? They call them correctional centers. They don't correct criminals. Ours do. The reason we do, because we know that a criminal is made by culture. You're not necessarily a bad guy. A criminal may even help an old lady across the street. What I don't like about that is a criminal doesn't say, gee, what do I do now that she got across the street? How does she live? Where does she live? How does she go shopping when she becomes decrepit and can hardly walk? There are a lot of older people in the future will be assigned jobs in old folks' homes or children's centers, because they like to be with children or work with animals. But you will pick what you want to do. But most people in the future will be multidisciplinarians, so they can work in any area. And any area they work in will help people. No, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, I guess that answered my question. Another point is, will there still be money to a certain extent during the transition?
Yeah, there'd be trouble in the money areas. And there'd be prisons in the money areas. And when things get bad, there'll be more prisons, and more prisons cost money. And they'll be letting the prisoners out because they can't afford it. And decreasing the size of the armies and navies because they have to tax people to maintain soldiers. You understand that? So a country that is overtaxed cuts down on the armies, but they work on missiles, because the army would invade an area, but it costs too much to pay each soldier, so they do guided missiles. So the missiles are guided by one man will guide a machine that launches 50 missiles. You understand what I mean? A soldier with a machine gun today, in the old days when it had a revolution in Russia, some soldiers had rifles, one bullet at a time. And the public came with their bats and roots and fought with rakes and shovels. The revolution was possible. Now one soldier with a laser machine gun can hold off 1,000 people. So it's going to be tougher, the transition, because they will use soldiers to try to check. And I'm talking about the minorities are going to be the first to rise up. And when the minorities get angry, they really don't know what to do. When the Afro-Americans were mistreated in L.A., the people got mad when they mistreated a black or shot a guy for no reason at all. They threw Molotov cocktails in dry goods stores, shopping centers. That's the wrong thing to do. What they should have done is the transmission lines that transmit high voltage, just break one of the legs. If it falls over, all electricity goes off from LA to San Francisco. They don't know what to do. The blacks get angry, they'll throw a fucking Molotov cocktail in any store. And that's not what you do. The blacks don't know how to be revolutionary. Now what you do if you really want to be revolutionary, you buy gasoline trucks or you rent them. And you pump out all the gasoline, put nerve gas in it. And every time there's a Ku Klux Klan meeting at the Shrine Auditorium, you put it in the ventilated system. You understand what I'm saying? They don't fight that way. They don't know how. And so the downtrodden don't know how to be revolutionary in a revolutionary age.
I think you need to visit your correctional
Well,
facility.
I'm not advocating it. I'm telling you, I would rather educate people to a resource-based economy than kill people. I understand revolution. I understand why it occurs. Am I mad at them? I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not mad at the capitalist, the soldier. They just don't know how to solve problems. I think it's easy to go to any country and say, if we share resources, don't have to maintain an army. You get American ingenuity. We got your waterfalls we will use to generate power. And I don't know if you know this, but super low temperatures, you can conduct electricity with no loss, no power loss.